returns. The episode is called Fancy's No Good Rotten Week. And I would imagine, can you give us a little bit of a taste of what his No Good Rotten Week consisted of?
He's having live-in boyfriend issues. He's living with his boyfriend, and they're having problems. His grandmother died. And
his or his boyfriend's?
No, Fancy's grandmother died.
Okay.
And in the process, he was waiting for her to die in hospice, and she did not die. And then as soon as he got home, she did die. So he wasn't there to make it back in time to see her. And yeah, I think that pretty much sums it up. But there was a little more detail.
I was so glad I didn't leave after that first week that my dad was in the hospital, because it seemed like he was not getting better because he was too far gone to get better. But it seemed as though he would hang on for a long time, because he had already hung on longer. What he had been diagnosed with when I was still living in Chicago. He had been diagnosed with a couple of different things. There were various cancers. And they told us at the time that my dad probably had it until Christmas. And that was 2008. He got diagnosed in the summer of 2008. And they said, you probably have until Christmas. So 14 years later, wow. I'm like, this dude is, and towards the end, by the way, it all fell apart very, very quickly. But those last few years, I would tell people, like, you'd never know my dad was sick. He wasn't getting, like, checked up. The first few months of his diagnosis, he was, like, getting blood transfusions every 24 hours. He was constantly getting transfusions. And so years went by, and my mom made sure he stayed healthy and he had good doctors. He looked great. And then it all happened at once. But at the end of that first week, because Gwen and Nora were back here, I said, I left very abruptly after the show one night when I was getting texted by my siblings. And that first night, they were like, we don't know if Dad's going to make it, so you should get here now. So I'm racing to Chicago from here. And at the end of that first week, it seemed like he might hang on for quite a while. And, I told Gwen, I said, there's no reason for you guys to be out here because we're literally sitting in the hospital room all day. My mom didn't leave the hospital for 2 weeks. She pitched a fit because you're not supposed to, like, stay in the room with them. Mm-hmm. They want people going home and coming back, which is what my siblings and I did. My mom pitched a friggin' fit.
A real Karen.
She's like, I'm not leaving. My husband, So she would kind of walk around a little bit. We'd bring her food. And she'd use the shower and the bathroom in the hospital room. But, he was in the critical care unit for 2 weeks. But at the end of that first week, I almost left. Because I was like, well, it seems like, just based on what the doctors were telling us, they were like, this could be over in a couple of days. This could be over in 6 months. And I'm just so glad I didn't leave, because it was another week and he died and I would have been gone. But you just don't know.
You don't know.
You don't know. I'm like, obviously I can't be here in this hospital for the next month. I got a job to do. I got a family. I'm the only one that's not near my parents. I'm the only one, that's ever lived outside Illinois. And so I'm like, I can't, but I'm so glad I didn't.
What gave you closure? Because I hear that all the time for people that, like, lose a parent. Like, I guess this would be a question for Mary, too. When you see your parent for the last time, or if you think it's going to be the last time, what do you look for in closure? Like, do you just say goodbye? Do you ask a question you've always wanted to ask? What do you do in that scenario?
Well, I didn't get closure. My dad was in the hospital when no one was allowed to visit because of COVID.
Yeah, you talked to him on iPad, right?
We talked to him. The last time I saw my dad was Sunday via Zoom, and he passed away Thursday, 4 days later. So the last time I saw my dad in person was Christmas, December 25th, and then he went into the hospital on the 29th, I think. And so he passed away on January 14th. So for me...
But he was lucid on the iPad?
Yeah, he was doing great. He was improving. And for me, as far as closure goes, and it's for the same for a lot of other people who lost people to COVID, that is 90% of why my grief was so hard. Yeah. Is that it's like, I didn't get a stitch of closure. I didn't get to say goodbye. I didn't get to see him. I didn't get to visit. Like, we weren't allowed to do anything for the full 2 weeks that he was there. And so
That's why I got so lucky that all
You
this
really
happened
did,
after
yeah.
COVID. Yeah.
because I mean, even just a few months earlier, you don't know what the protocols might have been.
Right.
You know, like.
I mean, even I shouldn't say after COVID. It's still very much going on.
But my dad died the first
in
Christmas
the height
of it. Like
right.
10,000 people a day.
Lots
were
of people
dying.
were dying.
Like,
Right.
yeah. So
Like we were still wearing masks in the hospital,
yeah.
obviously, but it's nothing like what you were doing.
I can't speak to closure because that's been the hardest part of losing my dad was all of the open ends. That's what keeps me in therapy, to be honest with you, is trying to close those things on your own after the person you need to talk to isn't there anymore. It's really, really hard. But I can imagine it's just, I mean, saying I love you and, I don't know, making up for the stuff that I'm sorry for not being there more. I feel like it's the same conversations. I'm not sure, but.
What about your dad, Alan? How did you get closure?
We all got to have conversations with him. So again,
your dad was lucid too, though, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Did he
until
seem scared?
Huh?
Did he seem scared?
He told me at one point that he was. I think when it finally sunk in at the end of that first week, I think it finally occurred to him that he wasn't getting out of that hospital room alive. Because, like, everybody had come to see him that first weekend because we were told this could be a matter of days or whatever. So at the end of that first week is when we sat down. You know, these hospitals all have palliative care consultants who will come and walk you through end-of-life care. But you have to make the decision, okay, he's not going to get better. Yeah. And the doctors, you know, the oncologists, they'll pump. The thing that my dad had was that his body didn't make platelets anymore. So they're like, we can keep pumping him full of bags of platelets. Mm-hmm. We can keep, you know, the doctor's job is to keep them alive. And they're like, so we can do this for the next 6 months. But it's not. He's not going to improve. Yeah, he had slow bleeds inside, and he's covered in bruises. And so we sat down with my mom because I think my mom needed us to tell her it was okay to start doing this. And so we did that for another week. But at the but so we had all said what we wanted to say. We got to, we were with him when he died. So
I've never seen anybody die before.
I mean, I've seen plenty of people die before.
I don't want to see someone die.
This is the you know, I'm the first one to you know, Gwen still has her dad, her mom, and her stepmom. Like I'm the first one of us to lose a parent. Mm-hmm. And we have to go through it again multiple times. Yeah. Between the two of us. So in the grand scheme, you know, to hear Mary's stories in that height of COVID, it's just awful. So in the grand scheme of things, I had the best case scenario.
It's never easy.
But we technically got 14 years with our dad we weren't supposed to have based on their, you know. So we were like, I mean, anytime anybody gets his luck. But given his condition at the time, we were like, this was all been gravy. Mm-hmm. So, you know, but for all of those people, you know, like Mary, who like lost somebody during COVID and couldn't see him and couldn't talk to him. I mean, that's just like, you know, that's I don't know how you get around that. You're still getting around it.
Right.
Yeah,
it takes a really long time. And I mean, if we're going to turn this segment into a sad segment, that's what sometimes, Bill, it upsets me when you talk about your parents, when I'm like, dude, I mean, I know that my dad and I had a really hard relationship for a long time. I'm like...
But we don't have a relationship, though.
But that's what I mean. It's
there's no... I mean, the relationship that we have
You don't think you're going to regret that when they pass away?
I don't know what to do. I don't know what... Like, I can't... You know how stubborn I am about things I believe in? I know. Now, imagine I believed in the things that he believes in.
Right.
Like, there's just not a path there that I see.
You guys have fundamental differences of opinion on things. It's not like, we don't like this kind of, you don't come over enough, or you know, it's that kind of.
So the relationship that we do have, where we keep things cordial, it's about as good as it's gonna get.
Right.
And I never was close with him.
Yeah.
Like growing up, it was never like a situation. Like I love him, I absolutely love him to death, but it is never a situation where I felt like there's any like closeness. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I definitely am closer with my mom, and have been closer to her throughout my life. But with my dad, I mean, it was just we've only grown further and further apart.
Yeah.
Some of my earliest memories of life were with my grandmother. And she died, I think, like when I was 6 or 7, and it was cancer. And that was like that was the only time I ever knew about death, because I was sitting with her in her hospital bed. Didn't know what was wrong with her, but like me and my grandma were real close, and I would sit in the bed with her and eat her Cheerios. Even then, I was greedy. But like that was like
dying grandmother's
my
food.
dying grandmother.
All she can keep down is Cheerios.
Going
Yeah.
through
Give me
chemo.
those snacks, Grandma.
Dry Cheerios.
Going through chemo, and I'm literally eating her Cheerios. But I didn't understand the concept of death, and then one day she was just gone. I didn't know what happened, so I don't even remember mourning that loss. I was far too young.
Right, you're 19 years old. How could you know?
You can't grasp it at that age.
Don't talk about my Grammy, but I think about her often because I wonder if she would be proud of me and if she would accept me.
And if she could have lived longer with more Cheerios as
You wouldn't
sustenance.
have taken all of her nutrition.
if you hadn't taken her nutrients.
She was a religious woman. She was a Baptist woman, so I don't know if she would accept my sexuality or not.
Huh.
Well, that was what a hard thing for my dad and I was, is that my dad really disapproved of me doing comedy. Like, it was a huge point of contention my entire career, because he's like,
Even when you were starting to become successful at it.
he did not start to respect it until I got on this show. When I got,
That's
yes.
right, baby. That's
Yep.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, finally, you're legit.
Well, for real, because people at his work started recognizing me by name or things like that, where he's like, oh, okay, people. I was like, yeah, people have known me for the last 8 years, too. You didn't care about that. And there was so...
Nobody he knew ever said, hey, I saw your daughter and she was real funny. I saw one of her shows.
He didn't think that, like, the MC or the host was part of the show. So for when
Oh,
I
you
was,
weren't headlining yet?
No,
Oh, I
no,
see.
not really. Not in Cleveland. I wasn't headlining here.
Okay.
So it was a huge point of contention between he and I, because I dropped out of pharmacy school and we grew up poor. All my dad cared about was money. So he's like, you're an idiot. You should be making $150,000 a year at CVS. and
Giving
you're
up a
out-
big job, yeah.
Yeah, what the hell's wrong with you? Get your head out of your ass type of stuff. Every time we talked.
You could be the highest paid person at Target.
Right, seriously.
What are you doing?
And that's how he felt. And so we fought for years, and we would go 8 months, a year without talking because of stuff like that. We were both stubborn, and that's why, like, when he came to my album recording at Hilarities was the first time he ever saw me headline, and I sold out 5 shows. So for him to see that and be like, oh, this is actually a real thing. And there was parts of me that were so like I don't
Smear
even
it.
not
Smear it in his
kind
face.
of, but like even after he died, I am in the last 2 years I've had more success than I've had in the first 10. So after he died, I'm like, oh, you ass, you died right when things started to
Yeah.
get good. I can't even prove you wrong
Yeah.
anymore. Like,
You pulled the cord right before.
he did it on purpose. Like,
Yeah.
But yeah, dude, it's there's all kinds of tough stuff.
That
like
kind of surprises me, and obviously I didn't know your dad other than meeting him a couple of times, but as you've described him, it kind of surprises me because he was clearly a guy that was doing what he wanted to do.
Mhm.
And I would think that he'd want you to do what you wanted to do.
I think he still
You
has,
guys didn't have money because of him.
right.
It wasn't like, this is what it is,
Right.
you know?
I think it's still just those fatherly instincts. You want your kids to have better than you had, you know?
Yeah.
And he knew he wasn't doing it for me. So he's like, hey, dumbass, you're setting yourself up from success.
I
And then
see.
you just rip the rug right out from under yourself because you want to tell jokes like, what the hell is wrong with you?
Trying to make
you
people
know?
laugh.
Right.
My dad never had. I mean, we had moments where he'd be like, but it was more my mom. She was more. I mean, I told the story about her trying to get me to be an auctioneer and stuff like that, and I just like I'm doing this, and then when they
Right.
saw that I was just like all in, and there was nothing that they could do, they knew who I was. They said, okay, we know when he's invested in something, he's going to give it his all, and it's going to, you know, whether he's I was able to survive for 10 years before I was on this show and, make money doing comedy, and they saw that. And then, but I think things really changed with my dad is when he asked me for the last time if I believed in God, and I said no. Our relationship was never the same again after that.
How long ago was that?
It's been about 10 years.
10 years.
Probably actually longer. Probably about 14 years.
Wow.
I mean, but also like I ripped his heart out with
I get
the way
that.
I was.
Which also can't lie.
But
'Cause
I
you'll be
mean,
held to
I mean, I
that.
could lie respectfully.
no,
But no,
like
I mean,
with the Philippines stuff.
Yeah, the Philippine stuff. I mean, that destroyed both my parents, and then me leaving the church was a whole nother thing, and and then making jokes about it. Like the fact that they still talk to me
Yeah,
is
I
pretty
guess that's
impressive.
pretty true,
Like
too.
I don't fault them at all for how our relationship is. I take responsibility for my part of it.
They get blamed for your actions in the Philippines.
No, they don't. No, I did everything.
Oh, I
And
didn't
they're
know.
like, oh, how could you raise a boy like that? Like the church doesn't.
They had no idea they raised a boy like that.
I'm saying when
They
it all
caught that
came out.
No,
No.
because also it was very private. Like when
Until you made albums about it.
yeah, but I mean
No one who is in good standing of the church is listening to those albums anyways.
I guess
So
that's true.
some are and they love it.
like it's so
Because
true.
they bring some of their friends, and there's this one lady that she just loves my comedy. And it's like, so seeing her like be all hyped up, and I told the conversation about my mom where I mentioned a joke to her that was from the album recording at the show she was at, and she's like, and people laugh at that, and I'm like, yes, you were there, you saw it.
people laugh
So
at that.
you know, but they're also like, they're not very secular people. They don't like, my mom doesn't even listen to music. My dad used to be more into music, but now he's way more into
Chants.
church.
kidding.
He listens to church stuff.
Jesus is their
and
co-pilot.
politics stuff, and it's just there's really not a lot of common ground.
Hi guys, hate the show. To show you how soft I am, you guys were talking about pimple popping and ingrown hairs and all that other disgusting stuff, and I had to 30 second forward. It was awful. I can't even listen to people talk about it, so consider yourselves better than me. Bye.
I was doing, for people who haven't seen the video of Mary watching the ram's horn toenail removal
so
video.
Gross, dude.
I think it's on our TikTok. We probably put it everywhere. But
Yeah, it's on all like the social medias, but it's also like, if you want to see the whole long segment, just search Mary Santora reacts.
I'm out here because Mark Nolan and I, we share this studio. And so before he's off the air in the morning, I'm out there in the main suite doing work. And I'm at one of the desks at the end here. And everybody was coming to me this morning going, Jesus Christ, that toenail video.
It's so
Like,
gross, dude.
Carletta, who does the morning show at GAR, was talking to me about it. Like salespeople, they were like, oh my God, that video.
Hey, salespeople, come on, sell that segment. Got podiatrists.
Yeah.
We could find someone to, Febreze.
There you go.
If you-
Dr.
Do I got to do all the work
Scholes.
for you?
Yeah, Dr. Scholes.
Yeah.
Tough acting, Tenactin.
Every Monday we show Mary a gross video, and it's sponsored by Febreze. That makes a ton of sense to me.
There you go.
Or Febreze foot cam.
Yeah. R. Kelly found guilty on 6 counts in federal child pornography trial in Chicago.
Oh my gosh.
Robert Sylvester Kelly, 55, was convicted on 6 of the 13 counts brought against him.
Okay, well, he wasn't guilty on everything. It's not all bad. All right.
He was guilty on fewer than he was found
He
innocent.
could have been guilty on all 13.
Yeah,
Try
that's
to
right.
find the silver lining.
There's
half full.
the guy's going to spend the rest of his life in prison. I don't know where the silver lining is, but well, there you go. I got to take a break. You want to get the last word in? Shoot me a text 35192. You got the Corey Roddick Experience on the way after 6:30. You'll be in good shape there, and we'll be back.
It's the Alan Cox Show.
Every